Currently, we are inside of round number 2, brought to you by our good friends at MMAinsider.net. You can follow them on Twitter at MMAinsider.net. And as I said, we will be interviewing MMA cut guy David Maldonado right here inside of round number 2. And David, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Now, David, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what outside of your profession do you like to do for fun?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity because I really feel like my angle to the sport is a little bit different than many others who would claim a similar title and try and carry the same craft to the fighters out in the MMA world. I actually bring in a couple different titles to what I do on my weekends in the world of MMA. I'm also a certified athletic trainer, which for those who don't know what that would mean, depending on where they're listening, whatever your favorite NFL football team might be, when one of your favorite players gets hurt, someone runs out on the field first. That would be a certified athletic trainer. So that is my honed skill, and that's where I have one of my degrees in, and so it makes it a perfect transition for what I do for the fighters inside the cage. And I'm also a sports specialist physical therapist. So all those skills really carry on real well to bring a formal medical training background to be able to hopefully raise the sport a little bit of a higher level than it's used to. So that's what pays the bills for me, in addition to, again, being very busy in the MMA world. So it's a perfect blend for me, and I can't be any happier to have such an enjoyable, if you call it, second job as being a cut man in this sport.
Now, as you said, David, you started your career getting your degree in college through athletic training, but how did you transition from getting your degree in college in athletic training to becoming a cut guy and involved in the world of mixed martial arts?
Absolutely. Yeah, I, like many of the listeners, am a fan of the sport. That's where I began. It was exposed to me by a couple friends, and we got together on pay-per-view nights and would be watching years ago. And what I just basically did is I tend to analyze everything in the world, you know, how the person at Taco Bell makes those tacos, you know, you name it. I'm always kind of watching people's details and actions and finding something fascinating about it. In this case, I was watching the people on the pay-per-views taking care of the fighters, and I just couldn't help but notice, what in the world are they doing? Who taught these guys? What kind of training do they have? Because I was seeing things that just empirically weren't matching up. The skill set and the applications they were trying, you could just see flawed technique based on formal training like I had. Maybe in cases they were getting the job done, but I just thought, okay, where is this coming from? And so I didn't understand, and so it was a frustrating time for me to watch. And then I went from the West Coast where I lived, moved out to Indiana for, again, a university position as an athletic trainer. And at that point, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to find a local gym and not sell them anything, not be too overbearing, just kind of sit on the side and be quiet. And a couple months later of doing that on occasion a couple times a week, the fighters who, you know, said, hey, there's that guy again. You sure you don't want to roll with us? No, I'm fine. I'm just watching, just trying to learn a little bit. And, you know, after a couple months, they were saying, hey, there's that guy. Hey, can you look at my knee? Can you look at his thumb? Can you look at, you know, and I had a line of guys that were trying to get some free medical advice because few of them ever have insurance, and so I'm happy to help wherever I can, especially the week before a fight. And so some of these guys had events coming up, and it just so happened one of the promoters of the show in town happened to train a little bit at that same gym. And so I just asked the fighters, hey, do you mind if I help you guys in the corner on Friday? They said, great. After a couple of those events, I asked the promoter, do you mind if I represent you in the show so I can help out everyone that has needs instead of just these guys? And he was happy to have me. It just so happened this was one of the absolute grandfathers of the sport, Jeff Osborne. Evansville, Indiana is where I spent those years. And as many people who know the sport know, he's been there since the very beginning of MMA, and he is one of the most direct reasons why women's MMA is here where it is today. Pretty much every one of those fighters on The Ultimate Fighter right now that have any kind of long pedigree can give thanks to Jeff Osborne, and I can do the same for having the opportunity to show what I do and kind of help it develop locally with his promotion.
Even though you've kind of been on the medical side of things within the world of sports and athletics, have you ever had an aspiration yourself to be a professional athlete?
A professional athlete? Absolutely. I'm probably like any other American out there who, says probably I want to be a policeman, no way to firefighter, no way to professional, you name it. I went through those stages for sure. And I think just the fact that I realized I played second base because my dad realized I didn't have the strongest arm, that probably took that idea away. And then I didn't get over 6 feet tall, and so I blamed that on the fact I didn't make the NBA. And so a couple early concussions as a kid, and football was off the list. And so with those things failing, it certainly spoiled any of those options, and thankfully athletic training came right at that same timing as I finished high school to carry me through. So I didn't even have a college career because of that change of focus. But in terms of anything that swings into this sport, absolutely not. I'm quite proud to say that I'm not the one taking the punch. I'll just help the guys that do.
Is it safe to say, Dave, that you've never trained any martial arts?
It is absolutely true. It's one of those where I almost see it, in a sense, as a bit of pride to help the coaches who a lot of times can be a little bit intimidated by me. And I always try and make it clear, look, I am not claiming to be knowledgeable about every aspect of this sport or even the medical world. I do one thing well, and that's going to be to make your fighter last a little bit longer in his fight. I'm not going to coach your fighter, so let's keep the roles intact. I'm not going to talk to your coach or to your fighter in the corner, so just let me do what I do, and we're both going to help him out to the best possible angle. And so the only thing that's changed a little bit is being in the industry as I have, I've crossed paths with so many great, wonderful, skilled, and honored people that have been there for years and are just currently just really taking off in the industry. And each of those, so often, as we become acquaintances and friends, will offer, themselves. There's a gym about 45 minutes away that's run by a former UFC fighter that I absolutely respect. He's Greg Jackson trained MMA, BJJ black belt. He's one of the most astute minds in terms of ground skills that I've ever seen by sitting in on some of his seminars. Because again, I'm always wanting to learn. I just haven't dove in myself. And he and his wife have offered to I guess you could say, break me in gently if I ever was interested. And for me, it just seems sentimental. If I'm going to do that, and it's going to be soon, even though I know it's going to hurt, I'm going to probably dive in with them, and then from there, I'll take the other offers of some local gyms and just get familiar with the sport. I honestly don't think it's going to make a great difference in how I approach the skills that I have, but it's sure going to just be a fun way to be involved and get in a little bit better shape.
Cool. Before we started the interview, I was on your Facebook page looking at some of your pictures and whatnot, and I saw I'm actually relatively close. I'm just over the border here in Illinois, and I've been to Coliseum Combat, and I saw that you were there. I believe it was 2 weeks ago, if I'm not 2 or 3 weeks ago. But what other promotions have you worked for? Absolutely,
yeah. And it was 2 weeks ago, and Mark Slater has been one of the great people that I've enjoyed working with consistently. Keep in mind, as an example for this year, where my activity thankfully continues to grow, I'm going to work about 45 or 46 shows this calendar year. So I'll try and keep the list fairly abbreviated, and anybody I miss will hopefully understand that that you guys don't want to hear about this for hours. But some of the notable names, I work with 4 of the Access Television promotions, so CFA, XFC, Titan, Invicta, RFA, Pro Elite when they were still involved, Sport Fight X. I have been coast to coast now. Trying to think of some of the others. Yes, Coliseum Combat. Of course, Hook and Shoot is where I got my start. I've been with NAAFS over in Ohio. I've been with Flawless, which had some stops in Chicago there in Illinois. Griggs, Josh Griggs with his GE fights. I've been with him as he's gone from California throughout the Midwest. And, again, many stops in between.
Are you getting a call? I've always wondered this. Are you getting a call from RFA and they're like, we want you to be our cut man? Or is it kind of along the lines of, you know, you're like an independent contractor and you go to the RFA and you say, hey, I have these skills, I've done this many shows, and they're like, oh, wow, we would like you to be our cut man. I mean, are you the pursuer, or do those promotions kind of pursue you? How does that work?
I would love to be so flattered as to say that, yes, I'm getting cold call people saying, please, me first, and that kind of thing. But no, I don't know if it's unfortunate. I think I'm proud of the path I've taken. I haven't been under the tutelage of some big name that's kind of hand-fed me a bunch of shows, as some other people might have gotten their start. In my case, I was in a local, Evansville, Indiana. Who's ever heard of the town and realized, what talent was around me? And I pretty much, just like you would have your frustrating telemarketer, was just making calls to people. You're in Illinois, so you can certainly relate. 618, when they were really jumping with Dennis Cole down there in Southern Illinois, I was over there. Not even making gas money, just getting involved with them just to be active and that kind of thing. And I was working there and hopefully taking it a different direction. And I met up with some influential people in the industry that saw what I did and passed along the word and maybe was a reference in that case. But no, absolutely. Even now, if there's a free weekend I have that I'd like to help out somebody new, it's probably 10% feedback of people that respond based on all the other calls they get from other people, and they have nothing really based on an email or a quick phone call to know the difference between what I can offer and what the local guy down the street just wrote them to ask the same idea about. So it's been absolutely my own effort. In some cases, I have worked for some large promotions offering basically to go there as a free trial and, let them see what I can do. And in many of those cases, that's how I have shown my skills. Now that I have had, thankfully, some good success, I can use that history to hopefully springboard me so they can realize that I'm somehow different than everyone else who's maybe trying to contact them. And, word of mouth does help. And I've had even recently fighters at a show say, hey, on Facebook, this guy is the guy you need here. I'll feel safer if he's the guy taking my hands or helping me with any injuries. And so that's extremely flattering. But more often than not, it's absolutely an uphill battle trying to convince somebody that I'm a worthwhile expense or something like that until they've seen me. Once they've seen me and seen what I do, usually there's never any issues continuing to work with them.
I got kind of a two-part question. Kind of, if you can, walk us through like a typical fight night, once you get there, what happens. And then is there anything that you do that fans would be surprised that you do? Fans see you get into the cage, help cover up a cut or, the normal stuff. What is something that you do that we never see? Yeah, fantastic questions. I've had, been blessed to be on some different broadcasts, and it's those kind of questions that I feel like, why aren't those asked more? Because I would think me as a listener would be the kind of thing that I'd be intrigued by.
instead of a little bit more of the standard question. So, yeah, my day would be quite simple. It varies quite a bit. Let me say that quickly. If it's a local show versus a larger promotion, I have more or less freedom to do different things, but I'll just go in the order that it exists. And so for me, my next show is going to be down in Miami with CFA on Saturday. And so
nice.
That'll take a little bit more travel. So I will be down there on Friday. I like to be there a day before in a promotion like that because it's a state that's seen me before, but I want to make sure that there's no issues. And so to me, to make sure that the state commission is familiar with me, the doctors know me, the fighters get a chance to see me first, and at the weigh-ins they know what to expect, so there's no surprises on fight night. I try and make all those preparations the day before. And then there's just quite a bit of waiting for fight night. And so for me, it's, again, a little bit more of a polished system. So all my gear and all my clothing and things like that are prepared for the most part, but make a couple final touches. And then I am there, let's say, first fight is at 7. I am there about 4:30 to get myself ready, and especially on a night that's a little bit busier, like Coliseum Combat, Hook and Shoot, some of those others, or the one I'll have the next week in Nashville with XFC, I'm going to have a fairly lengthy line of people that have interest in me taping their hands, because they want that little bit higher quality for fight night and that kind of thing. So on a different location, like maybe CFA, where people are coming from all over, and Florida doesn't see me every day, I may not have as much activity from that end. So it's simply an idea of making sure I'm familiar with everything from the standpoint of where the physicians are sitting. They know where I'm sitting, what our roles are going to be that night. The people involved backstage know who I am and what I may need and that kind of thing. Things that you may not have guessed on a night like these next 3 weekends with Access TV. There's television considerations to consider. For instance, the lighting in the building. If I turn a certain way to be greasing a fighter, I might be shielding a camera. There might be lighting issues. So I'll touch base, just because, again, that's how detailed I am. Before we get started, I'll touch base with one of the producers. Am I okay here? Do you want me more here? Do you want me to turn them at an angle? And sometimes they'll have requests, sometimes they won't. And so those little things, you may notice I actually turn a fighter a certain direction on a given night. And it's not because I have a odd idiosyncrasy. It's because there's better lighting that way, or that's going to be a smoother transition, however it works. Even with the referees, we have our own exchange of how things will go best, so it's most smooth and less chance of errors. And so we'll talk about what our arrangements will be as well. But then otherwise, after preparing any fighters, making sure I understand who needs what. Maybe at an intermission I need to get back there and tape up another guy. Those are kind of the things that might be missed, as I'm running around back there trying to make sure everybody is handled.
Right.
But yeah, there's little things of, I need hydration for myself. I can't be the one passing out, so I've got to make sure I know where water is. I need to know where some other necessities would be in that way. But
right.
Other than that, some of the things that may have gone unspoken, we worked, let me think where it was, Albuquerque. XFC did a show in Albuquerque at the beginning of September, and a couple of the current Ultimate Fighter contestants, Jessamine Duke and Shayna, were cornering a fighter that they had friendship with. And Shayna, who, to my knowledge on the show, has still not revealed how she has an injury. She was on crutches and a walking boot, but she was going to have to be getting in and out of the cage. Well, it just so happened I was kind of eavesdropping, and with my background, knowing how athletes may not use crutches correctly and may overlook some things, they were actually smart enough to try and be doing a dry run of how she would get in and out of the cage. And I happened to have stepped in and paused and said, sorry to interrupt, guys, but what if there's a cut? I understand you're taking the bucket and she's taking the crutches, but what if one of you are now not allowed to go in because I'm going in for a cut? Have you guys game planned that? And they're like, wow, good thought. So that kind of thing, and then flash forward to what you'll then see with when they did go in. It was a lot smoother process because I added my 2 cents, so they were prepared. So some of those kind of unseen preparations or considerations are maybe what people don't get a chance to see.
Yeah, I'll definitely tell you this much. When I watch any of the fights on Access, I'm going to look and see if you're trying to get your face on TV or if you're actually trying to get the best angle. Because, you know, when they do those walkouts, sometimes, you know, it gets a little boring. So it'll give me something to look at. And, you know, when people are at my house for watching it, I'll be like, I knew that was going to happen. I just knew it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'll definitely find that amusing. I know for me, being in that setting, it's easy for me to tell when that motivation is in the minds of another cut man. For me, I find it kind of embarrassing to, for instance, what you will notice, go ahead and watch for yourself, you won't see me in the cage any longer than I have to, unless there's a cameraman who's in the doorway or I'm going to obstruct the view of somebody for a post-fight announcement. If I don't need to be in there, I'm out of there. And so you'll see other promotions where in my mind it's very obvious they have no reason to be there, but they're just sitting around hoping they can be right in the line of fire for a little bit extra camera time. And to me, that's not the professionalism that I like to showcase. So for me, I just smile and say, wow, that's your motivation? Okay, so be it. So, yeah, pay attention to that one because I'm definitely a little more sheepish at avoiding the camera if I don't have to.
Right. I think you said this a little bit earlier, but just to clarify, you said you do between like 46 and 50 shows in a year?
Yeah, I've averaged over the last couple of years in the mid-30s, but this year looks to plan out at this point with no surprises on how the year ends up. I think I should get 45 or 46.
With doing that many events, David, how far are you traveling for these events?
All of them have been throughout the U.S. So again, this year, this calendar year, some of the further stops, again, Miami is certainly about as far of a corner as you can get to. Thankfully, that's why I'm grateful to be based in the Midwest, because I can get in any direction a lot easier than someone who's coastal. But I've been to L.A. multiple times this year, and Albuquerque, Miami, and then otherwise just scattered throughout anywhere from Chicago and maybe out to North Carolina. So some of those upper corners, especially the left one with Washington, that's where I spent many years. It's definitely a preferred stop that I haven't been to as much as I'd like. But again, I'm certainly making efforts to let promoters know in that area that I might be the best option available, and I'd love to show them why.
Now, you've mentioned, of course, you got an upcoming fight that you'll be working with down in Miami, CFA. You also mentioned that you are going to work XFC coming up in Nashville. Are there any other events that you got coming up that people maybe recognize the organization or you know for a fact is going to be on TV that they could watch?
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you asking. It's going to be a huge October for me where I'll have back-to-back-to-backs. I'll have the CFA on Saturday. The 18th will have XFC, and then the 25th will be RFA, who will do their promotion out in Des Moines, Iowa. And so they've chosen that location for, 3 weeks from now. And so absolutely looking forward to that one. And that's an absolutely great promotion that I love being a part of. Just some great people in every organization I get to work with. And then the week to follow, it's a little bit more of a regional show, but I wanted to make sure to mention it because it ties in some good opportunities, and that's November 1st and 2nd. I'm going to then spend 2 days back-to-back, a double-header opportunity with an organization called 3FC. They're going to have a Valor Kickboxing/MMA on Friday night, and then the next night they will have a straight MMA event with a 3FC label, and that's going to have some top talent Adam Townsend's going to be high on the card there, who's a successful fighter. And because it's the area of Scott Holzman, who is the belt holder for XFC at the 155 division, that's his stomping grounds there. He's going to be present just as a supporter. But in that afternoon of the 2nd, I'm actually going to be offering 2 courses that the ISKA sanctioning body of Tennessee has asked me to bring to the area, and so have some other local media people to make some education available for some of the coaches and corners. So I'm actually going to offer a taping seminar at noon that day, and then at 1:45 I'm going to offer my corner seminar that I offer to coaches, corners, and fighters that would just like a few more of those skills and some of that logical reasoning to help themselves in and out of the cage.
All right, Dave, you're talking about that seminar. Would there ever be a scenario where somebody like yourself would put on some sort of seminar where an everyday fan could come in? Because I'm very intrigued with all the information that you've given us. And to be honest, I know nothing about wrapping hands. I got a friend of mine that runs a gym. I go to lots of local shows. But I think it would be very interesting to hear it from somebody like yourself, like why you put the end swell, on when somebody's eyes popping up. Do you ever do that for the fans, or is it typically just for the fighters?
Well, I'll say this. Because of how this sport works and how sometimes fighters have a very limited selection of resources that help them be supported and get to events and that kind of thing, I think it's unfortunate, but it's the way it is. In many cases, you would be surprised how many girlfriends, mothers, fathers, and whatnot are the corners in a fighter's event. And so they're basically fans, in my opinion, and those are the ones that are put in a tough spot where if I wasn't there, they were going to have to grab a towel and hope for some good luck. And so that is unfortunate. And so that's, I suppose, one of the reasons why I like to plant a little bit of knowledge for the seminars that I do, because I make it real quick to say in rather bold statements in the objectives and in the title, this is not a cut man course. You didn't hear me say a cut man seminar. I'm not going to make anyone a cut man, because I hope we would all agree that it's going to take more than 90 minutes and a little bit more education to actually do that. So this is a corner seminar. So that could fit any one of those people. But to answer your direct question, I have constantly, I'm an educator at heart. I love to learn, and I love to give information to people that are interested. And so I've said over and over to every person who finds out that I have these available, just because I do this seminar that speaks a little bit more to a corner or coach does not mean that I would not modify it. And I would love to do something that's maybe more of a, not necessarily a MMA fantasy camp kind of thing where you can kind of see on the inside what we're doing or anything like that. But if that helps people understand where it could come from, I would love to modify it and make that available. I just need the interested ears and eyes. And so if I knew that there was a group that said, oh my gosh, there's 10 of us that are just waiting for that to happen, I'll be there. We just got to find a location. So those kind of things I would love to make available to, it could be that girlfriend of a fighter that all she sees is her bloody boyfriend go into the cage, and they don't understand why that guy keeps going over and getting in their way. Well, help me kind of explain that and maybe make the event a little bit more understandable for that mom or whatnot, that the grandma that's just put the T-shirt on and is standing in the group of 50 fans all cheering for him. Now you'll know what you're going to see in the next hour. That kind of thing would be absolutely a blast to be a part of.
All right, David, we'll get you out of here with this. You've already mentioned some of the promotions that you have worked with in your career, but I wanted to know if you had any aspirations to work with some of the big guns like Bellator or the UFC, or you just kind of content with what you're doing right now?
I'll handle this as delicately as possible because admittedly, because my background is different than anyone else who is with any of the large players in the industry, it sometimes creates a little bit of a uncomfortable scenario where I'm trying to put across the idea that this sport could use formal training and more of a background than, hey, I've been around it for 30 years, so trust me, I know what I'm doing. I think we all deserve a little bit more for those fighters. And so I've ruffled some feathers in the past, I will say that. And so Bellator, there's really no interest. I've actually been in conversation with them. They have had my name as a reference to help them out. And I think there was probably a little bit of not a perfect match personality-wise and certainly schedule-wise. I love the fact that I get to work with so many promotions and help the sport more than just be locked in with one promotion. And then as far as other ones like the UFC, quite honestly, their selection is not one of choosing the best empirical, talented cut man that's out there. It's very much like other industries that we can all relate to, where it's who you know, who are you friends with, and that kind of thing. And so if I don't fall in that circle and I suppose beg to be a part of that group, then I'm probably not going to get in. So I've worked with them before at events, Invicta and otherwise, and nice people, without question, but I can quickly go through a small list of them that I would say they have no business working with that caliber of fighters, and those names, of course, won't be mentioned because I have too much respect for myself and others to create any negative talk like that. But yeah, I feel like I am offering the promotions that are there the best that's available, and I'm happy to do that with anyone else that would like that in any other promotion that exists. So it's a wide open opportunity and friendship I'd love to make with anyone interested, but I don't have aspirations. Fighters should aspire to be in the UFC because the best talent is there, but the same isn't true with everything else that is a part of that or other organizations, unfortunately.
Well, David, I think you've enlightened myself and Dave and all of our listeners with your expertise on a different angle from the world of mixed martial arts, and we're definitely going to have you back because that was some great stuff from you. And is there anything, like you got a Twitter handle or anything people can get in contact with you if this spurred any interest in our listeners?
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. Just want to reiterate, of course, feel free to support those promotions that I will be a part of and either grab a ticket or watch the event. But November 2nd, again, is going to be an opportunity. If anyone's in the East Tennessee area, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee is where I'll offer those seminars. If anyone did want to take advantage, ways I can be reached, I have a website, www.completecutman.com. In the same way, my Twitter handle is a takeoff from that, where it's simply @CompleteCutman. And, of course, Facebook is my name, David Maldonado. And any of those options will allow conversation or questions to be answered if any exist. And there's plenty of people I could thank and otherwise. But I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I definitely look forward to talking with you guys again.
He is the complete cut man, David Maldonado. And thanks for coming on the show, David. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks a lot, David.
Once again, that was MMA cut guy David Maldonado right here on the Beyond the Cage podcast presented by Intimidation Clothing.